Hello, everybody. This is Justin Tate with Wrestle Recap.
Yo, people. My name is Michelle Tate.
We have the same last name because we're brother and sister, and we are the only brother and sister duo that's doing a wrestling podcast where we take you on a journey through wrestling throughout the decades.
And we have a real great time doing it. Justin, this is our 31st episode.
31. Also 31 flavors at Baskin-Robbins. Just saying.
I love Baskin-Robbins. What is your favorite flavor?
Cherry's Jubilee.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I really like the bubblegum one, which actually tastes really similar to Cherry's Jubilee, but it's got the little pieces. But the honorable mention has to be daiquiri ice.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah, It gives you that weird feeling in the back of your mouth. I love it. That sounds kind of dirty. Anyway, let's go to current wrestling.
Let's talk about it. So right off the top, Demolition, who we have talked about so many times on this show, they have now signed a WWE Legends deal, and it has some people saying maybe they could be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. What do you think?
I mean, it's about time. I think we've mentioned on this podcast that they need to go in like soon. And do you think that'll include Crush?
You know what? I was wondering the same thing. I think it should, but at the same time, Crush had a long career after Demolition because he's only in the group for like a year. And so even if he's not inducted this time around, which I think he probably would be, I see him being inducted further on down the line.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe they could even like give him his own separate award, but the same year. I feel like that would be fair.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Also, talking about the WWE Hall of Fame since our last show, Michelle McCool announced for the WWE Hall of Fame this year. So far, I think we only have Triple H and Michelle McCool. But how do you feel about that one?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, it'd be cooler if it was Michelle Tate being inducted, but
well, you're gonna have to do some work.
How many people do they normally announce for the Hall of Fame? Is it like 5?
You know, it seems to vary. I want to say that for a long time it was like 6 or so, but then like the speeches started getting long, and so I don't know if there's like a hard and fast number. I think my big gripe with it, aside from the long induction speeches, is that they're doing it in front of an arena full of people. And if you go online, I think these might still be on Peacock, and look at the early ones, it was just in a room full of other wrestlers. And it was very small, very intimate in like a hotel banquet hall. And it was really cool.
Yeah, I think I would prefer that if I were a wrestler. But I don't know. I also get the, the one last thrill of being cheered by a stadium full of people. I don't know.
That's true. It could be. Well, let's talk one more thing on current wrestling. Ricky Starks is no more. There is now a man who looks just like him who is now officially signed with NXT, Ricky Saints. How do you feel?
I hate it. I hate it. I don't like change. And like, here's the thing. Like when Walter turned to Gunther, I was like, that's a fantastic move. Because Walter, really, like what Walter do you know that's under the age of 80?
Right.
But I don't like it, man. Like I think Ricky Saint sounds cooler, but Ricky Saints, like, I don't know. I'm like, it's so similar, but like, why change it?
I'm hoping that it'll be one of those things where we just forget one day that it ever was Ricky Starks, right? Like nobody accidentally calls Gunther Walter anymore, right?
Because
and there's
Walter
so many
was dumb.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, we forget that these people, they change and we get used to them and everything. I mean, for the longest time, Seth Rollins was known as Tyler Black. And then he comes to WWE and everybody's like, who is Seth Rollins? Now you can't think of him any other way.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, all I hear is a heel being like, okay, Ricky Taints. And then everyone's like chanting, taint, taint, taint.
Well, that is an insult for another day. And speaking of another day, we got to go back to another day. We got to go back about 35 years. Do you have the time machine warmed up?
Oh, I do. Let's push the button.
That's the nice thing is it's so cold outside today, and getting in the time machine is just it just warms me up immediately.
Thank goodness. It is cold as hell. I wake up this morning, it's like feels like 0 degrees outside. I was like, yeah.
That feels like death. Let's talk about the show that we're getting into today. It is NWA WCW Capital Combat. Took place May 19th, 1990 from the DC Armory in Washington, DC. Now, this place still stands, still holds events, and it was an active armory, which is kind of cool. Just a big old place there in DC. Attendance for the show, around 7,500 people in the crowd. And our commentators for today, a little bit of a throwback here. Jim Ross and Bob Caudle. Usually they've been keeping Bob Caudle to doing interviews, that sort of thing, but he's here on the call today. And the number one song in the U.S. on May 19th, 1990 was Vogue by Madonna. You know what? I didn't even know until I was in college and in film classes and stuff that there was a whole documentary about Vogue culture that was made in like the 80s. And it was possibly what inspired Madonna to do that song.
Hold up. Vogue was the thing before Madonna sang about it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a big thing.
I just thought it was inspired by RuPaul's Drag Race because they love some Vogue on RuPaul.
Oh, no. This is a very, very old thing. Well, tell us about the background of this show.
Let's do it. So this pay-per-view was originally planned to be called Armed and Dangerous. And that's even what it was called by Jim Ross at the end of the last pay-per-view. Also, unfortunately, there was a printing error on the tickets for the show. Of
course there was. It's WCW.
Oh, gosh. Well, it was saying that the event started at 8 o'clock p.m. instead of the scheduled start time, which was 7 o'clock p.m. And that led to many fans showing up late. And like, this isn't the first time this has happened, right? Like, I feel like this happened on one of the early Starcades. Yeah.
And the funniest printing error I could ever think of in WCW history is when they did like in the late 90s, they had that rebrand where they had the new logo and everything, right? And they had thousands of like memo pads and papers and envelopes and everything printed with the new logo. And it said their address in Altanta, Georgia.
Oh, no.
It was just one of those things where it's like, they just can't win.
No. And I mean, this is kind of the first thing of several things that reminds me of an earlier Starcade on the show. As you mentioned, you already mentioned Bob Caudle on commentary. So, yeah, but there was a substitution on the show, which we will explain when we get to the match we are talking about. But Justin, before we go any further, we got to have some
wrestle stats.
Ooh, them sweet wrestle stats. I've been working hard on wrestle stats.
Yeah,
my gosh.
You have.
And trying to come up with a couple new ideas that I think are going to be kind of fun. But let's get into the wrestle stats for the show. The average age of wrestlers on this pay-per-view, 32 years old. For the youngest, it is a three-way tie between Cactus Jack, Fatu, and the Samoan Savage, each of them 24 years old. And the oldest to wrestle on the show, Theodore Long, good old Teddy at 42 years of age. Nothing really changed with the averages this week all around. So let's get into the fun stuff. Out of the 217 wrestlers we've watched on Wrestle Recap, 123 of them are still alive today for a percentage of 56.68%. I'm doing the Elton John big glasses. Anybody watching on YouTube, you know.
See, that song doesn't remind me of Elton John. It just reminds me of Carrot Top because I know he uses it. I think it's just he does some joke about how he's been at the Luxor for forever and then plays that.
I need to go back and see him sometime.
Hell yeah, I'm seeing him in March. It's been a while, so I'm excited to see him. But let's get into the beginning of the show.
Yes, what do we see when we hit this on the Peacock machine?
Whoa is what I gotta say. This had me so intrigued already. So the show opens with a shot of a brown manila folder marked top secret. But wait, we have to pause right here. You know what drives me absolutely mother effing bonkers? When a grown freaking adult, like that's in the business world, refers to a manila folder as a vanilla folder. It kills me.
Well, they will tell you that irregardless.
Ooh. And I also hate, I'm hearing a lot of people say conversate lately. No,
I hate that.
Yes, you are conversing with someone. You're not conversating with anybody.
Yeah, or comfortability. It's comfort.
Ew. Yes.
Anyway, enough of the
Ugh.
grammar lesson, folks.
If anyone knows our family at all, everyone knows that Michelle and Justin are the biggest grammar freaks, and it's because of that stupid smart kid school we had to go to. But that's what happened to us. We turned into grammar freaks. That was it.
Claim to fame.
Anyway, that manila folder, it read top secret. So the folder magically opens and there's like a note and it reads that the ramifications of the recent Sting Flair altercation involving the role of Sting and the Four Horsemen need to be discussed. But that's all the note says. And I'm like, okay, y'all need to have a conversation. Why is this a top secret?
Couldn't this have been an email? Come on.
Right. Hey, they did have email back then. And what was it, like Net Zero? That was like the free AOL or something.
Yeah, like Netscape, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then it says this unfortunate event has brought to light information that we did not want to release to the public. And so, do we ever find out what that information is? Because I finished the show and I still don't know what they're talking about.
Arn Anderson, he was jealous of Ole's suspenders.
Ugh, well, of course, we'll get into Arn's outfit later. I got stuff to say about that one. So after the little note, there's like newspaper article clippings, but it's like the Harry Potter newspapers because the pictures are moving and it says like Sting is injured and it's a posed photo of Sting smiling, but then it starts moving and he's all moving around. So then they move to a photo of the U.S. Capitol building, which is funny because the show is called Capital Combat, but it's not called Capitol Combat. The Capitol is spelled with an O-L at the end. The show is Capital, A-L at the end. But womp womp. Across the U.S. Capitol, we get the title of our show across the screen, which is Capital Combat 90, Return of RoboCop. What? What? Oh, don't you grumpy man. No, you're not going to ruin my happiness with this show. So Tony Schiavone, gosh, sorry guys, I got the flu this week. This is fun, right? I mean, Tamiflu, it saved my life. But anyway, that's the only reason I'm doing the show today. So if I get a little bit coffee, y'all just got to understand that.
Or if she's loopy. Well, I don't know how you'd be able to tell, but if she gets loopy, then you'll really know.
Dude, my brain hasn't been working at all this week. Like, I'm reading these words. I'm like, am I reading right? Anyway, Tony Schiavone introduces the show and like, dang, like Tony got a hot boy makeover. Like he's got some guyliner and he's got like the longer like Sean Hunter Dream Boy, the 90s parted hair down the middle. He's lost some weight. I'm like, okay, Tony. Okay, I see you. But he briefly kind of talks about the matches happening on tonight's show.
His upper lip was really sweaty. Like, was that a 90s hot thing too, or were the 90s just weird or what?
I don't know. Maybe he added with the guyliner and put some foundation on and it's for the wrong skin type. He's a little oily. I don't know. But he did look thinner though and like younger and like hotter, right?
He did. Yeah. He looked like he had a little makeover there for the 90s.
I appreciate it. It de-aged him a lot, but anyway, the next part's kind of weird, especially being in the 90s. The entire cast of Hamilton shows up in full costume with their instruments to play the national anthem. Like, why are they dressed like that? This show is weird.
Yeah, they like had on like the weird like bibs and the like Paul Revere hats. And yeah, it was very odd. But what was really funny was like before the last note of the national anthem even played, a few of the fireworks went off early. Like, fireworks like, ah, ah, ah. You would expect, oh, well, there's more coming when the song finishes, and the song finishes, and there's no fireworks. It's like, where did those come from?
I have learned that all pyro thus far has kind of sucked. We are spoiled by 2025.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bob and JR make some predictions about the night, and we're on to our first match, which is a 6-man tag team match. So these teams are Bam Bam Bigelow, Cactus Jack, and Kevin Sullivan, with Sir Oliver Humperdinck / Big Kahuna versus Norman the Lunatic and the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering. I've finally learned how to say Ellering. You know how I have to do it? I have to see it in my head and read it. Ellering. That's just how I got to do it. But
I see.
Bam Bam Bigelow, it's been a while since we saw him. We haven't seen him since Starrcade 88, and we're in 1990.
Yeah, that was surprising. I felt like we had seen him at least once since then, maybe in 89, but these things, they start to run together when you're watching them every single week. Here's something kind of great. So out of the 6 guys in this match, Mick Foley is the only one who is still alive today. So cool.
I wish I had a song that was not "I'm Still Standing" reloaded. I should have read the notes before. But
well, that's all right. Right off the bat, gotta say this: WCW is kicking the crap out of WWF when it comes to the entranceways. Right, like WWF, they pretty much just have the black curtain with a big WWF logo over it, which is fine, I guess. But like this one, it's like a bunch of scaffolding with lights all over it. Looks really cool.
Oh yeah, I thought it was real neat. It fits that aesthetic of the 80s, 90s so well, like the rock kind of. Yeah,
right.
I just loved it. But dang, Humperdinck Big Kahuna, I don't even know what they're calling him at this point. His hair's gotten really long. His mullet's down to his butt.
Yeah, well, any hair that you have to move when you sit down on the toilet, it better be attached.
Oh God, I used to have really long hair like down to my butt, and I remember sitting on the toilet and like if you were naked, like you had to pee after you showered, and I was sitting there, it was like tickling the top of your butt crack when you'd move your head. And so yeah, I totally understand what you're talking about.
I'll never know the pleasure.
What'd you say about me being loopy from the flu? Anyway,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this show's going. By the end of it, we're going to be talking about AEW Double or Nothing 2020. I don't know what we're doing.
Actually, I had tickets to that, and then stupid COVID ruined it, so I didn't get to go.
See, I told you we'd get on there.
Well, Cactus Jack is dressed like a sexy lady. He's wearing this tight black and leopard number, but it looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Meanwhile, Bam Bam has switched to a sort of sleeveless number, or maybe the flames on his gear burn the sleeves off. I don't know. But the Road Warriors ride motorcycles to the ring. Excuse me, correction. They ride bitch on motorcycles to the ring, followed by Norman, who is riding a scooter. And that was kind of funny to me.
I really loved that, actually. Okay, Norman's growing on me. It's only taken one show, and he's growing on me. But
yeah,
Bam Bam and Norman were in the ring at one point, and all I could think of was like, man, we need Earthquake over here in WCW. Like, can you imagine that match? Like, what company or brand would sponsor that match?
Crisco.
Oh, Crisco. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like
just
that.
Like lather them up, and then just let them go at it.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Bam Bam Bigelow, who suplexed Norman. Damn.
Yeah. No, that was big. That was really big. And it didn't look like crap. Like they actually made it happen. That was cool. Speaking of Bam Bam, your scalp is a pretty smart place to have a tattoo. I was thinking about this because Bam Bam's scalp is covered in. Like, if you want to cover it, you just grow your hair out, unless you're like me and you can't. It's not like these kids today with their face tattoos, which you can't really do much about. Like, there's not any makeup that's that good. They look like the restroom stall at a gas station walking around, like they fell asleep on the funny pages.
You are so accurate, and I hate it. And I'm like, I feel like such an old person because I'm like, you're gonna regret that one day, kid. Like, you're gonna. And a lot of it is, I'm like, the only way you can pull off a face tattoo is if you're a tattoo artist.
Right.
Convinced.
Like, if that's your job. Otherwise, like, you're usually not going to do a huge business loan with the bank and reading juicy across somebody's eyebrow.
Exactly. Well, I'm pretty sure Humperdinck, he rolled out of bed, pulled on some pants, threw a robe on, no shirt, because his outfit and his energy level during this match would indicate, yes, that is what happened. Like,
yeah, like he's usually like got his eyes bugging out of his head and he's like, like freaking out. And he kind of seemed like he just wanted to go back and watch The Young and the Restless in bed
with Lex Luger and Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, of course. Side note, I don't know if you noticed this. There's WCW signage all around the arena, like the entrance, the signs on the walls, the ring apron, all says WCW. But you know what? There's no hint of NWA signage anywhere. And yes, that does mean, for anybody who wonders and heard us talk about it before, the WCW sign at the entrance still says wow and still has a little purple section painted over, so it makes it into a C.
Gosh dang it. I hope they would have upgraded by now.
You would think.
But they spent all the money on the ring entrance part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to go ahead and sound the siren, okay?
Okay.
Because I think there was a butt crack alert from Norman, but honestly, with his character, it totally works.
Did it have some of Humperdinck's hair in it? Because then you would know.
That's a good one. Ew. Well, Norman the Lunatic and the Road Warriors win this match in just 9 minutes and 38 seconds. It was pretty quick. What'd you think of it as an opener?
He's fine, sure, okay. Like, I mean, Road Warriors are always over with the crowd, and Norman is there for the comedy stuff. It was fine, I guess.
See, and that's kind of the attitude I have about every match on this show of
Yeah.
it was fine, but we'll continue. So this show is already reminding me of Starrcade 1984. The production quality actually seems less than what we've been getting, and I don't know if that's the lighting or the cameras. Did you notice a difference in that?
Not so much. It just felt like the total vibe was a little bit off from what was before.
See, and I'm gonna catch hate for this, but I kind of blame that on Bob Caudle, because he's very technical and very to the point, and there's not a lot of conversation in between, talking about move to move, and you can tell JR is trying to get him talking, but he's not having much luck.
Yeah. It was an odd choice to have him come in here. I almost would have rather had JR and Tony doing this.
Yeah, I'm real confused about that, but nothing really happens after this match. They go straight to the next one, like so quickly. In fact, that Mean Mark kind of runs past Humperdinck's crew on the way to the ring. I don't know. Maybe Mean Mark is just in a super big hurry. He's like, come on, I've got places to be. I'm going to be one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And I'm ready to roll my eyes back in my head and be creepy, not be this weird, mean ginger. I don't know. But
I'm sure that's what he was thinking. That was a lot for that walk down.
It was. But take me to the next singles match, brother.
He is coming down to the ring because he has a match against Johnny Ace. And of course, it's funny because we both saw these guys on Wrestle War 90. Back then, he was known as Mark Callis or Mean Mark Callis. For this show, they've cut it down. He's just Mean Mark. So
I like that better.
Great, Mean Mark. Weird music for Johnny Ace here. Like, I feel like the Dynamic Dudes didn't have this music, but what they had for Johnny Ace here is like this ooh wah music that's like, it sounds like he's at like some sort of like a 50s dreamboat and he wants to like take you to the diner for a sock hop or something.
Oh, that'd be kind of cute though, but not from him. Blech.
No.
So at this point, the Dynamic Dudes are done, right?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I want to say yes, but then the moment I say that, I'm going to remember like, oh, no. This was just a one-time thing. So I'm not quite sure.
Okay, well.
But Mean Mark is introduced as being led to the ring by Teddy Long. And even the Chiron at the beginning or the bottom of the screen says Teddy Long or Theodore R. Long. But Teddy's not there. And then finally, Mean Mark gets down to the end of the aisle, almost to the ring. And Teddy comes jogging on down. Like, what do we think he was doing back there?
He was probably saying his last goodbyes to his hair.
Yeah.
Because that's coming off.
That's hair singular, not like a group of hairs.
Well, JR is on his education kick again. That man's always talking about education. But I thought it was kind of interesting. So he says that Mean Mark was an MVP for basketball in the Lone Star Conference and that he has a degree in sports management from Texas Wesleyan University. But then he adds that his favorite animal is a snake and that he likes Ozzy Osbourne. And I'm like, okay, number one, like those last two things, like that makes total sense for his upcoming Undertaker character. But number two, I feel like Mean Mark is on a dating show and it's like singled out or like MTV's like next with these random facts being spit. Be like, Mean Mark, well, he likes snakes and he likes listening to Ozzy Osbourne and long walks on the beach. Like it was just so random.
And somewhere a very young Michelle McCool was watching going, one day.
One day.
One day.
No, she was probably not born.
Right. Well, the only other time that we've seen Mean Mark, he was wearing jeans. Remember, it was that street fight. Now he's in trunks, and I don't know what's weirder, seeing The Undertaker's bare legs or seeing him with zero tattoos.
I think the legs are weirder, man. And
I think so too.
With that pale ginger skin, man, it really shows up. But yeah, I agree. But, who is this ref, and why do I always think he's Eddie Guerrero?
They were saying his name during the show is Mike Adkins, who I don't totally remember. I mean, I know he was around for a while, but I don't feel like he was around for a long, long time.
Yeah, every time. I mean, I was like, is it his nose? Is it his eyes? I'm like, no, it's just his entire face.
Yeah, and he has that little mustache and everything. Johnny Ace hits a big cross body over the top onto Mean Mark on the floor, and that was great. What wasn't so great was Bob Caudle saying, Johnny just coming in Mark's face there. Like, God, Bob, shit. You gotta warn me before you say stuff like that on Peacock. God damn it, I did it too. Shit.
Oh.
Okay.
I got a cough, man. You killed me.
Yeah, and you might think that I'm just being gross about him saying that, but right after that, I noticed a long wet streak in the ring. So just saying.
All right, Justin, what we got next week? Because I'm ending this. I'm just kidding. That's nasty. Well, Mean Mark is dominating in this match. And honestly, like, I don't think he needs Teddy Long. Like, maybe I only think that because I know who he is. Like, I know he's the Undertaker.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, even when he goes on to be the Undertaker, for a long time, he had somebody mostly speaking for him, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it was because, like, they felt he wasn't great on the mic, and that just kind of helped. And that character that he had as the Undertaker really didn't have to talk.
No. And I mean, at least Paul Bearer made more sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, Teddy's jacket looks like something Michael Jackson dropped off at Goodwill. It's like this shiny, spacey silver jacket.
I was like, Teddy, are you trying to look younger? Is that what you're doing? But it threw me off up there when you said that he's 42. I thought he was like 60.
Nope. He was at one point.
Well, man, there's a huge 6'9" flying elbow off the top rope for that win from Mean Mark. Impressive.
Yes, very impressive. Mean Mark wins the match in 10 minutes, 41 seconds. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I'm always going to love seeing Mean Mark. The hardest part about it is calling him Mean Mark. Like, I kept putting in my notes UT for Undertaker. I'm like, no, I have to stick to what is right for the podcast. What'd you think?
And what's weird is if you think about it, based off of what would happen, where they would go in the wrestling business, this was Mean Mark defeating his future boss.
Whoa.
Weird, right?
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Let's move on. After the match, we get a replay of Mean Mark's elbow off the top, while JR tells us we're going to see where that ranked on the, quote, Slamometer. And I thought it was just a colloquialism. Oh, yeah, let's see where that is on the Slamometer. But no, there was some delay in pulling it up. And JR explains that it's still calibrating. And then we finally get, I mean, it couldn't be that this is just a shitty idea, right? But we finally get a 0 through 10 scale on the bottom of the screen showing that elbow off the top was an 8. Okay. First, it wasn't a slam, so it shouldn't be on something called the Slamometer.
Sure, it should.
Second, no, it should not. No. Second, they never told us the criteria that this instrument is using, like volume, impact. This was an 8 on the Slamometer. Who says? What is this Slamometer that we are literally not going to see again the rest of the night measuring this based on? This was dumb as shit.
No, that's what I was about to say. Is the only problem I have with the Slamometer is it only showed up once. I thought it was going to be like a consistent thing throughout the night, but it was once.
Did they decide it was too much trouble? Like, did they need to oil the Slamometer a little bit more? Like, what was this?
I love. Yeah,
I could almost see it if it was like a sponsored thing. If it was a way to get a sponsor's name on, like, here's the Snickers Slamometer. Okay, like I'd get that, but just doing it, come on. Well, Gordon Soley appears to be in the basement of the building waiting outside Sting's locker room. And as security surrounds the locker room door, and as I say, security surrounding it, there was 2 security guys, one on either side. Gordon tells us that RoboCop is here to ensure the protection of the little stingers from the threats made by the 4 horsemen. And then we're back with Tony Schiavone. He's with the Rock and Roll Express, and they're in tonight's strap match. And they say that they're going to whip the Freebirds' behinds like their mama should have a long time ago. And with that, we go on to the next match.
Yes, it is a tag team match with Mike Rotunda and Tommy Rich versus the Samoan SWAT team. Now, all of these guys, it's been a little bit since we've seen them. Mike and Tommy were last on Halloween Havoc in 89. And then Fatu and Samoan Savage were both on Starrcade 89. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because the match, like, we're like, okay, we're getting into the match. We're going to have entrances. And then they say something random during someone's interest about Mr. and Mrs. Robert Benner winning the Capital Sweepstakes. So, like, what did they win? And then I got to thinking, I was like, why aren't sweepstakes a thing anymore? Like, I feel like that was a huge thing that disappeared.
Yeah, I think like maybe Gary Michael Capetta wasn't supposed to say that part yet. Either that or they changed when that was supposed to happen without telling him. But you're right. Like, we didn't know like what those people won. Like, it didn't look like they were in the front row, so they didn't win good seats. And it didn't look like they won any merchandise because they were dressed like farmers. So, like,
well, at this point, they didn't even show them yet.
Oh, that's right. That's later.
Yeah.
That's later.
We circle back to Mr. and Mrs. Robert.
That's right.
Benner
That's
later.
because it was so awkward because like somebody's coming down the way and Gary Michael Capetta is like, and we'd like to congratulate blah, blah, blah. And here are the Samoans. Yes. And it was like, what?
Yes. But dang, like I remember an episode of Rugrats where Chaz won the sweepstakes. And I'm like, that's a word you just don't hear anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You don't.
Huh.
Sad.
Anyway. All right. Big fat question. Maybe you can answer it to me. Why is Mike Rotunda a ship captain all of a sudden? Because like, wasn't he like a Syracuse athlete?
Yeah. Last time we saw him as part of the Varsity Club, and it was a big deal that he was a Syracuse wrestler and everything. And he took a little bit of time off. I don't know if he was injured or what, but he came back as the owner of a boat. And then he eventually got his crew together, which consisted of Norman the Lunatic and Abdullah the Butcher. So there's nobody you want on a boat more than two fat guys.
Well, hey, I swear the members of the Samoan SWAT team have changed at least 6 times, right?
I can't keep up. I can't either.
But speaking of, and I kid you not, I did not make this up to be funny. I accidentally typed the Samoan Twat team in my notes. And honestly, that's like a great tag name for like Nia Jackson Tamina.
The Samoan Twat team. Oh my God.
I didn't mean to. And I don't know if autocorrected changed it to that. And I was like, Apple, you dirty.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. All so right. Like beginning of the match, the Samoans keep trying to do like their pre-match ritual thing. And what the hell is that whistle noise? Is this like the ship captain, like being like, woo wee? Like there's a, do you like that? There's a whistle noise that keeps happening. What was going on?
It was Tommy Rich.
What?
Like he kept whistling to like screw up their Samoan ritual. And I don't know why it worked. Why they like, if you're a savage from Samoa, a whistle ain't gonna scare you. But yeah, it was weird.
What do they call that? It starts with an H. It's like a Samoan ritual because our high school football team plays.
Well, I think it's not the same thing, but you're thinking of a haka.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I think this is different.
There's a football team out of Dallas, a high school football team from Euless Trinity. And like the whole team is like Samoan and they do like a cool haka thing before each game. It's fun to watch. Huh. Yeah. Huh. So I'm going to get up on my little soapbox here for a second.
Okay, don't fall.
Okay, so JR starts talking about Lex Luger during this match and how he was at the hospital up until today with a knee infection. So I'm like, who the hell gets a knee infection? Okay, in kayfabe, like, just say you broke your knee. You hurt it. You sprained it. You had a stomach bug. You had an ear infection. But if you ever heard anyone call their boss on a Monday and be like, oh, sorry, I can't come in. My knee is infected. Like, what? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm done.
I found it interesting that the more traditional wrestling company doesn't have a tag rope.
A what?
The tag rope, the rope that's in the corner for the, the person to hold so they can legally be tagged in. WCW doesn't have it.
You're not going to acknowledge my knee infection?
I'm afraid to. You know where I live. I'm perfectly agreeable to anything that you are saying.
That is really weird, though, right? Like, that's a strange injury to make up in kayfabe.
Yeah, a knee infection. That it is kind of weird.
You don't hear about that. But that is weird that they don't have a tag rope. That is very weird.
A lot of weird.
So it's so hard. It's kind of like The Undertaker. Rikishi, aka Fatu. And this is a legit question. He takes a huge leap off the top rope only to land flat on his belly and flat on his face with nobody around him. What was the point of that? Like it didn't look like, oh, he just barely missed somebody. Like there was no one around.
He was getting a bit of a belly and he thought that maybe the impact could, flatten it down a little bit.
He was hoping to go to his butt so he would make up a wrestling move later where he...
the stink face. Yeah. The Samoans double team Tommy Rich behind the distracted referee's back for the win. Now remember that finish, okay? Behind the distracted referee's back for the win. Got it in your mind? Okay, Go on.
Okay, well, that Samoan SWAT team wins the match in 17 minutes and 54 seconds. I thought this match was good, but it was a little long.
Yeah, no reason for it to be this long.
Yeah.
No reason.
Well, they announced the Samoan SWAT team. The Samoan SWAT team as the SST after the match. So I guess they're getting cool and they get an acronym now that they won.
I wonder if SST is also the sound that it made whenever Rikishi stuck your face in his butt.
All I kept thinking of was, SST, yeah, you know me.
Oh, God.
I've just found out that's a real song. I thought they just made it up for Sister Act 2.
Oh, boy.
When they're like, yeah, G-O-D, yeah, you know me. I thought that was just a song. And then I'm driving in my car. I hear something come on Sirius XM. And I was like, oh, my God, that's a real song.
It hurts. It hurts.
I'm sorry. Well, I think more than anything, I was still just kind of confused at why these pairs are feuding and why Mike Rotunda is now Captain Ron. I was like, this is the strangest thing. But I know Captain Ron exists. I'm not that young. So Tony interviews the Steiners, which again, I don't know why Tony's on interviews and not on commentary. But anyway, and Rick is doing his I'm dumb and talking is hard thing again. Even though JR said on the last show and he says on this show that he was going to be a teacher. But then Scott says they went through a lot together growing up and that when they were in college, they won a lot of matches together. College, make it make sense, Justin.
I don't know because I don't know that there's anything in college wrestling with tag teams. It might be kind of cool.
I thought he just meant they did some back underground Fight Club stuff where they were just
that could be too. That could be too. Hey, also, if we're making sense of stuff, make sense of Scott Steiner shaving the sides of his mullet. So it's now two distinct sections of hair. There's the conservative short on the top and the long back in the Scotty. Looks awful.
I got no answers for that one.
Yeah.
Anyway. They say that Doom wants a match, but they're not going to get one. The Steiners are just going to beat the crap out of Doom.
But it's happening in a match.
Yep. That's exactly what I said.
What? This man was going to be a school teacher, by the way.
Yes,
anyway.
He was. Well, oh man, we're acknowledging the sweepstakes winners again, everybody. Now's the time. So only this time they do show them on camera, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Benner, except the crowd literally does not care. And neither do Mr. and Mrs. Robert Benner.
It's kind of like when you go to the baseball game and they're like, and here's the winner of they get to sit in the recliner, the big lazy boy recliner tonight, Jim Johnson. And everybody looks at the screen and goes, all right.
Dude, I always wanted to win that, but now that I think about it, that is nasty. Do you know how many sweaty butts have sat in that nasty recliner and it sits there in the rain and everything? No.
Right.
That's a moldy recliner. No one wants to sit there. I'll say that Mrs. Benner didn't even have an identity. She was just Mrs. Robert Benner. Ew, hate that. But sorry, I'm just all kinds of pissy today, apparently. But as for the Benners, they almost look like brother and sister. Like they have like similar Coke bottle glasses, and they kind of look like the mutants at Table 9. That's a Wedding Singer reference for anyone who is following me here.
It would be really funny because, you know, like Gary Michael Capetta said it once before and it wasn't time. It'd be funny if he just like kept trying to announce this all night long, but just kept getting cut off. And like after all the crap that goes down after the show, Gary's all torn up, his tuxedo's hanging off. He's like, and the winners of the sweepstakes.
Oh man, those two, they were a happening. They were. Well, I thought it was gonna be like Sapphire, and you're gonna be like, you will see them again. And it was gonna be like a thing.
You will never see Mr. and Mrs. Robert Benner ever again. I can assure you.
I wonder where they're at. I'm gonna look them up on Facebook later. Now Missy Hyatt is brought out and introduced as the guest ring announcer for the next match. But in addition, they bring out a guest hairstylist, Mr. Jay Tapper, not to be confused with Jake Tapper, to cut off the hair of the loser in the next match. But like, hold up, wait, like, shouldn't it be a bad haircut? Like, if a stylist is going to do it, doesn't that mean the loser just wins a free good haircut?
Yeah, and it's not like the crowd went, oh, Jay Tapper, wow, what a treat. These tickets were cheap.
Right.
Yeah. And the comedy of Missy Hyatt introducing a hair versus hair match while wearing a humongous wig is just too much for me.
I guess it was like irony or something that they were going for. I don't know, but tell me
Let's get into this match. It is a hair versus hair match. Odd that I'm the one introducing this one, but it is between Paul Ellering and Theodore R. Long. Now, we've seen both of these guys on the outside of the ring, being a manager, in Teddy Long's case, being a referee even, but we've never seen either of them actually in a match. So let's go into them just a little bit. Paul Ellering, born August 22nd, 1953. Today, he's 71 years old, but on this pay-per-view, he was 36. And get this, the final pay-per-view that we are going to see him wrestle on, he didn't do very many in his span of his career. WWF In Your House 25, which was in the mid to late 90s. Unbelievable. Whoa. But before entering wrestling, he was actually an accomplished power lifter, and he wrestled for years before becoming known as the manager of the Road Warriors, of course. Along with the Road Warriors, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011, and he's the father of Rachel Ellering, who is currently signed to Ring of Honor.
Interesting. You know, you had that little flub because you make fun of how I can't say Ellering, so you had to say currently or whatever you just said.
How's that cold medicine? Is it working? Is it good?
It's great.
I like it. Daddy like it. All right. On the other side of the ring, Theodore R. Long, Teddy Long, born September 15th, 1947. 77 years old today, but on this pay-per-view, as we mentioned before, he was 42 years old. Last pay-per-view we're going to see him wrestle on, Survivor Series 2005.
Hell yeah.
Crazy. Well, his real name is Theodore Robert Rufus Long, which I think he should have been Theodore R.R. Long.
Yeah.
Put both R's in there. It's even more like just gross. But he actually started in the business as an errand boy for Tommy Rich and Abdullah the Butcher. And then he went to WWF in 1998, where he was a referee, and then he was a manager, and then the authority figure on SmackDown for a long time before being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017. That's Paul Ellering and Theodore R. Long. So let's talk about this match.
Yeah. Can we talk about how Paul doesn't even have hair? Like for this hair versus hair match, like it's maybe, and I mean maybe an inch long, and that's generous.
Yeah, and it's thinning too.
Yeah, but I mean, his hair is literally longer than his future in WWE with AOP. Heyo!
Oh man, I was going to mention that he just got let go from the WWE, but you know, I was going to leave it alone, but you just put it out there.
I did. Your dog knows how to open doors because I saw you go close that door and she just opened it.
Oh, good Lord. She's down here under my feet now. Yeah.
Okay. Sugar They announced him as Sugar Ray Long. What?
Yeah, remember, like, I think on that last pay-per-view, they called him Dancing Teddy Long, and he's like, no, player, now I'm Sugar Ray Long.
I mean, go for it. Sugar Ray Leonard had the same idea, but okay.
Yeah, well, he's wearing boxing gloves and headgear, which covers his horseshoe hairline. So we have a hair versus hair match between two guys who ain't got hair. This is great.
Oh gosh. Well, this match, it did not look good. It was slow, and it looked like two drunk dads pretending to, like, quote, play wrestling at a backyard barbecue. That's what it looked like.
It was really bad.
It was. And Teddy has something in his boxing glove, and like Paul gets the glove off of him and uses it against him and knocks him out, but we never see what's in the glove. So what do you think it was?
Well, they made such a big deal of like revealing what was in the glove, and then like nothing, and some little white thing flew out onto the mat.
I didn't even see that.
I have no idea what it was supposed to be, but it doesn't really matter because thankfully Paul Ellering wins this match. And I'm not saying thankfully because he won. I'm saying thankfully because it was only 1 minute and 57 seconds long. Do we need to go into final thoughts on this match, or
nah,
can we
man,
just go on?
Good. We're good.
All right, good. Well, celebrity hairstylist Jay Tapper, again, not Jake Tapper, he's on CNN, shaves off the remnants of what Father Time left behind on Teddy's head. And then Teddy hugs the ref all the way up the aisle to hide the barely there hair that was cut off. Teddy, my man, I know you do it today, but back then, I'm talking to past Teddy. I shaved my head for a reason. Jay Tapper did you a favor, my friend.
Yes, he did.
Well, back to Tony Schiavone. He's with the Andersons and Sid, who called Lex Luger an idiot for taking this match tonight. And then Ric Flair shows up and he screams and he spits and probably shakes his wiener around. And then we go to the next match.
I always forget, what is it called? A little Ricky?
Little Nature Boy.
There you go. Why can I never remember that? All right. So next we have a tag team match, but it actually has stakes behind it. It is for the NWA United States Tag Team Championship. And we've got Flying Brian and the Z-Man, who are our champions, versus the Midnight Express with Mr. Jim Cornette. Now, we saw all these dudes on Wrestle War 1990 pretty recently, so let's get into it.
Yeah, fun fact here. We talked about a substitution at the top of the show. Here's where it was. The Midnight Express wasn't originally supposed to be in this match. It was supposed to be the Samoan SWAT team going for the titles, but the Samoans failed to show up for the TV tapings where the build for this match was supposed to take place, so they were replaced by the Midnight Express.
They failed to, like, they just didn't feel like coming to work?
I'm not sure why. I mean, you think if that was the case, they'd be let go, because we've seen some firings for no-shows and that sort of thing. So something happened, but they didn't make it, and they were replaced in this program.
And it's kind of weird because they had another match on the show. So, okay. Well, there's a small cage set up ringside, and we learn it's for Jim Cornette. And like JR refers to it as the home for wayward wimps. I thought that was really funny. But it's not going to hang in the air, though. It's just going to sit there.
Something tells me that was Cornette begging, don't do that to me again. Please, God, don't do that to me again.
But like, I feel like you can't go backwards at that point. Like, you got to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. The cage is silly if it's just sitting on the ground.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, it did make me laugh though, because they had to really force him in, and it was almost like a dog in a dog crate. And I was like, just give him a treat, and he'll go in willingly. My dogs do.
Yeah, go and throw a Wendy's cheeseburger in there, and he'll go right on in, man. But the Midnight Express rocking some peach colored gear, and when I say peach, I want to get that perfect hue in your head. Like, think of the sign for an organic frozen yogurt place. That color of peach.
That's incredibly accurate.
Right.
I like that. But man, I literally don't have much to say for this match. Again, I think Bob is just keeping it very technical and straight wrestling, and that the story and fun have kind of been taken out of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like Flying Brian sucked. Z-Man didn't completely suck. Midnight Express, I love, especially Bobby Eaton. It wasn't there. Yeah. And I don't know why. But let me try to lighten the mood here. Out of the 4 guys in this match, Stan Lane is the only one living today. Well, I mean, and Jim Cornette, if you want to add him. Did that lighten the mood? I think I screwed that up.
I was about to say, I really should have read these notes beforehand and prepared us with a sound cue, because I think it would just been like a trombone.
There's actually, well, go on.
Well, I was just disappointed that Jim was locked in the cage the whole time. Like, he was still pretty funny when they would go over to him, but like Jim is the most like entertaining part of the Midnight Express. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, and the handheld camera that was focused on him down at ringside, they didn't have an audio feed on that. So he kept talking and saying stuff, but we couldn't hear a single thing he said, which was, I think, took away a lot too.
It really did. And like, that's like 90% of the funniness is hearing his little voice and all the crazy stuff he says.
Yeah, I know. Well, remember the finish that I told you to remember?
Yes.
Well, right here, the Midnight Express double teams one of the good guys behind the distracted referee's back, and that is now twice that we've seen that finish.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, really? That's the best you could come up with? Like, for the Capital Combat? What? But who let Jim out of that cage? Because, all right, the Midnight Express, they win, and they get the championship in 20 minutes and 20 seconds. And I was like, all right, cool match, whatever. But then Jim, holy crap, he gets to the middle of the ring so freaking fast. And I was like, who let him
out? well, they threw the Wendy's hamburger in there, but he heard that Bobby Eaton had the fries. So he had to get over there. You know, I mean, you can't have one without the other.
Exactly. And that was back when they had the yellow fry boxes, the good stuff. Yeah. Everyone's, taking our color out of life these days. But I mean, again, that was kind of a long match, 20 minutes and 20 seconds. What'd you think?
It was. And I found myself wondering if, like, maybe in this instance, we're victims of not having been alive then and following this week to week.
I mean, we were alive.
Well, you know what I mean, though? Like, in the middle of it, because obviously the Midnight Express were a huge deal. The fans, especially the women, loved Flying Brian and Z-Man. So I could see how this was like a really exciting thing at the time. But the match itself was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. And I think you're probably correct because, I can watch, it doesn't even have to be a pay-per-view. It can be Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite. And I still find myself more engaged in the matches just because I'm in the know of what's going on a little bit more. Or maybe I have more attachment to the talent. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, JR promotes the upcoming Great American Bash, which is always a great show in my opinion. I love that show. But, oh man, this is my moment. God. This is my moment, everybody. I get to talk about the best part of the show. Exciting. All right. All right.
Can I just point out that I have a big can of pub mix here? That
I love that stuff. They still make that?
Oh yeah. We get it at United. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna add that to my order list.
Anyway, this is more entertaining than what's about to happen on this pay-per-view. Anyway, go on.
Don't listen to this grumpy man. Oh, I just had a crispy R. Did you hear that?
Oh, God.
That was great. Do y'all know what a crispy R is? Oh, man. If you don't know what a crispy R is, look it up because I can't even explain it to you. You have to hear it. Look it up on TikTok. Anyway. So Gordon Solie, he's backstage outside of Sting's dressing room. And suddenly, the double doors pop open because Sting's dressing room has double doors. A bright white light is spilling out of the dressing room. I'm making this artistic. And along with smoke, not that kind of smoke. Sting didn't do drugs, kids.
Well, go on.
Yet. The men in black come out in their black suits and their sunglasses and all. And then RoboCop emerges from the smoke. This is incredible.
Let me time out here because I would think that the majority of our audience wants to relive these old days rather than find out about them for the first time. But there's a chance that there's people in our audience who don't know who RoboCop is.
You want to know, Justin? I don't know who he is. He came out and I was like, oh, that's who RoboCop is. Like I knew the image, but I've heard of RoboCop and I knew that image. I didn't know they were the same thing.
RoboCop was a very popular movie in the late 80s, early 90s, and it even spawned a sequel. And I think maybe one or two direct to video, really crappy, low budget sequels. Anyway, where he was a cop who got like just toe up in a shooting or something like that, and then was rebuilt as like half man, half robot, right? And odd little connection I have is he actually, the guy who played him, actually went to the University of North Texas, where I went to college, and graduated with the same degree I did.
What was his name?
Peter Weller.
That sounds familiar. Oh no,
Yeah.
our dad had a friend with that last name. That's why. Okay. Thank you for explaining who RoboCop is, because I was like, oh, that's the dude. Okay. So as soon as RoboCop comes out, the video feed and the audio gets like all jumbled with interference, which eventually leads to like just pure TV snow on screen. And I wonder if these kids, kids these days, even know what TV snow is. And like, I'm not talking about Frozen or Elsa, you little brats. Like,
yeah,
I'm talking
no,
about
like
TV snow.
TVs don't do that anymore. It's weird, which
No.
is always so funny when they like try to show somebody like being slammed into one of the LED boards on Wrestling Now, and it gets that snow, and it's like that doesn't happen
Yeah.
like
I'm like,
anywhere anymore.
that's
But
fake. So the segment backstage ends like super quickly, and they go back to the arena. And the audience, I felt like they were kind of booing, like a little bit, like semi boos, but I think they were just confused, which is understandable. So they announced Sting entering the arena, and immediately the crowd is happy, of course. And for being injured, he looks pretty awesome as always. But everyone's really excited. And then they announce RoboCop, who has the slowest entrance in the history of entrances, like even slower than Roman Reigns.
yeah, you would think that a robotic cop would have a speed knob somewhere, right?
Oh,
Like
he's got
they would,
one all right.
oh, good God
Whoa.
Almighty! Well, but and for
Whoa.
people who haven't seen him, he walks like a clunky robot,
Like the Tin Man before he got oiled.
yeah, exactly. He's like, and it's as dumb as it sounds.
Did he move that way in the movies?
Yes.
That's odd, because if you're a police officer, you have to be kind of fast. But
You
okay.
know, if you're looking for logic in a movie about a guy who is half robot, half man, all cop, you're already going down the wrong path.
Did you just make that up, or was that the tagline?
It might have been the tagline. I don't think I'm that smart.
Okay. I was like, that was really good. You should be hired somewhere. Well, the four horsemen suddenly appear, and they attack Sting, and they throw him in Cornette's little cage. He's like, oh, is there a Frosty left over here? However, RoboCop is still making his way down the ramp when this happens.
They should have had a big old magnet to bring him down there faster.
Justin, you're smiling a lot for hating this segment so much.
It's just so easy to joke about.
Well, finally, RoboCop reaches the cage, and RoboCop, man, he like bends the steel bars on the door of that cage, which opens the door. But no, don't let Sting out. You shut that door back, because RoboCop has to rip the door off completely off those hinges. Justin, this is so awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to go work on wrestle stats for a little bit. You let me know when we're done here.
No. So Sting, he emerges from the cage all pumped up, and the four horsemen stand there looking just freaking terrified of Sting and RoboCop. And they slowly exit the arena, but of course, not as slowly as that RoboCop.
Wait. You missed the best part of this.
What?
Okay, so the horsemen run away, right? And then Sting and RoboCop turn around to walk back up the aisle through the curtain, right?
Yeah,
You remember this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, when they first turned around, I noticed that RoboCop had his left hand like on his thigh awkwardly, like he wasn't in like robot arms position, like he was going to walk. And then they start walking, and he's doing the robot walk, and the supposedly metal plate covering his thigh is flopping around because it came undone somehow and all that. And he's having to walk up the aisle in this plastic suit with the thigh plate going plank, plank, plank the whole time.
I thought that was just either his pimp walk or he got injured.
Oh, it's that crappy costume. It wasn't meant for real physicality.
Oh, my bad. I thought that was supposed to happen. I didn't know. I don't know RoboCop. So who do you think was in that RoboCop outfit?
From everything I can tell, it was actually Peter Weller.
Wow. I'm surprised they didn't just like throw Cornette in there or something. That would have been funny, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all right, here's the thing. I know we dog on WWF for having these random long like pose down and bench press contests and stuff, but this was worth it. I thought it was good. It was different. It was fun. What are your thoughts?
I think it's worse in hindsight. I will say that. However,
what do you mean it's worse in hindsight? I feel like it was probably bad in the time and it's great in hindsight.
Why would these wrestlers be afraid of a guy in a plastic suit?
Because it was metal.
But, oh, God.
You have to suspend your disbelief and believe, Justin.
Can we go back and do like WrestleMania 3 again or something? Like,
oh, Lord. Well, Tony Schiavone, he is with Junkyard Dog. What? JYD is back? Like, I don't even remember which company we last saw him in because he was such a flip-flopper.
Yeah. He was last seen on Starrcade 88 shortly after jumping over from the WWF because I think he had just been on like SummerSlam or something. But he had been fired from WCW in 1989 for no showing an appearance and then missing the Wrestle War pay-per-view that year. You might remember we talked about the fact that he had to be replaced last minute and they never said why.
That is correct. I do remember that now. Well, he says he's been all over the world and he even lists the countries that he's been wrestling in. But then he says he, quote, went to the mountain one time too many. Like what? Like what mountain? What does that mean? Is that a cocaine reference?
I don't know if it was meant to be, but it certainly could be considering what we know now.
Like the snow on top of the mountain? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Best I can come up with. Well, JYD, he says he will take on anyone, but specifically calls out Mr. Mean Mark, used to be Callous. Cornette shows up and he's mad. He's complaining that JYD is taking up valuable TV time and it should be used for the new tag team champions, the Midnight Express. And he asked Junkyard Dog where the hell he's been because Midnight Express has been here and they've been winning. And JYD, he replies, I've been at 845 DeBerry Street in Louisville, Kentucky. And he asks Cornette if he knows where that is. Cornette reveals that it's his mother's house. Oh, sick burn. I liked that. I thought that was real funny. And Junkyard Dog says this is why he stopped going to school because he didn't like recess and he doesn't like to play games. But I bet JR will still talk about where he went to college later.
Probably so. And after all that, we finally get, what do you know, a wrestling match on this show. So why don't we try that out for a change? It is what is known as a corporal punishment tag team match with the Fabulous Freebirds versus the Rock and Roll Express. Last saw all these guys on Wrestle War 1990. The idea behind this match, of course, corporal punishment ties in with the theme that they're in Washington, D.C. You get it. Even if you shouldn't, you get it.
Yeah.
The idea behind this match is that there's a leather strap in two corners, and if somebody can grab one of them, then they can use it on the other team. But it's not like a leather strap like we normally see, like in CM Punk versus MJF or Piper versus Valentine. It's like a cat of nine tails, but with both ends taped up. It's very, very odd choice for reasons that I'll explain later.
Well, I was thinking it looked less painful because when it's a bunch of little pieces, there's more give versus, but maybe I'm wrong. But what they should have called this match is the mirror match. And okay, because you know that meme where all the Spider-Mans are pointing at each other? It looks like that because they all look alike and they're all wearing the same colors.
Yeah, this was Mullet Mania.
Yes, like it's the same gimmick with both. I was like, y'all should just be a 4-man tag team. Like y'all should just come together, man. But
right, a super group.
Yes. Well, Rock and Roll Express, they roll in on this platform and it's like, I was like, is this the ring cart? No. But they roll in and it's complete with like a 50s style jukebox playing like this Elvis sounding music, even though they're like 80s rockers. And I was like, hold up, is Honky Tonk Man about to show up? I was so excited.
Oh man. And like the best part was the platform. It started like veering off course. On the way down the aisle and like almost crashed into the barricade before one of the poor schlubs behind it was like, to the right, Jimbo, to the right. You're going to knock over their beers. Come on, Jimbo.
It was weird. That was a weird choice, right? Like, and it sounded very 50s. I just thought it was weird.
Honestly, I thought it was a cool idea. Like if you had something similar today and it was actually pulled off right with better lighting and camera work and everything, it might actually be kind of cool. But this just kind of looked fairly rinky dink and like they stole this jukebox from McDonald's.
Yeah, I was gonna say a Pizza Hut or something.
Yeah.
Well, the challengers, aka the Freebirds, are announced as being from Bad Street, USA. They actually enunciated, and the subtitles said Bad Street this week, not Back Street. And
I am very happy about that.
yeah, well, FYI, Backstreet Boys just announced that they're doing a series of shows at the Sphere in Las Vegas, and it's $1,000 minimum per ticket. $1,000. And I commented on this post that I went and saw the Backstreet Boys in like 2018 or 2019 at Planet Hollywood in Vegas. And I just commented that I really didn't enjoy the show that I saw a couple years ago. So I would like be skeptical of spending $1,000 just because it really wasn't that good. They needed some cardio. Nick Carter sounded pretty good. Everyone else, And
yeah, I saw them.
You saw them on like TikTok? Because there's a lot of videos on TikTok going around of how bad they sound.
Yeah. They're on TV like this past week and it was rough.
Right. And I said that. And my God, I never knew so many 40-year-old women would come at me. They were like, well, Brian has a health condition that affects his vocal cords. I'm like, cool, then don't sing and charge people $1,000 for it. And then they're like
that's why Phil Collins and Elton John and all these other musicians retire.
Right. And they were like, I'd like to see you do what they do. And I'm like, I'm not charging $1,000 at the Sphere to do it.
Exactly.
They were so mad at me. I finally deleted the comment because I got tired of getting the notifications.
Man, oh man, you got to be careful on that old Facebook, because anybody who's left on Facebook still commenting on stuff doesn't have a whole lot of time to do anything but argue on Facebook.
Golly, it's the old people land. They just like to get on there and argue.
It is. It's like the old rundown shopping malls. All that's left is like old people looking for a fight.
It's true. It's true.
Well, anyway, this referee, it's the one you were talking about earlier, reminded you of Eddie Guerrero. He reminds me of our dad in 1990. And to see him walking around carrying a leather strap made my butt feel phantom pains.
You know, it's funny because I remember having that thought and thinking he kind of looks like our dad, but I think he looks more like Eddie Guerrero. And then I questioned if that was a different ref, because a lot of these refs are looking the same. But you know, I wouldn't know because I never got spanked by our parents.
Well, that explains a lot. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I was a good kid, Justin. Oh wait. And dad left when I was 3. So
well, yeah, there is that. There is that
dark humor. Don't listen, Dad. Anyway, we're good now. So
yeah, like he was like, oh, okay, turn it off.
Well, the leather straps, they were fun, but I feel like they could have been used more. You know, like they didn't use them a whole lot for being the corporal punishment match. But I did enjoy when Michael Hayes was getting whipped with them and he started doing this like high knee stomp thing around the ring. It was very entertaining.
Michael Hayes is so good at getting a crowd going.
Yeah, like, he really is.
Just if they're dead, he'll get them up. If they're cheering, he'll make them boo. He's just so good.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, did you notice that there were a lot of people leaving their seats during this match? And it's weird because it sounds like the crowd is really loud, but they looked bored and like they were leaving. So was this the birth of piping in crowd noise?
They were all going to put a quarter in that jukebox. They had something they wanted to hear. That's totally all it had to be. Yeah.
Yep, but, right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, we'll get into it here. I'll just tell you the result. The Rock and Roll Express win this match in 18 and a half minutes. Tell me your thoughts on this match.
The exact same that I felt about the last tag team match and every other match. It was fine. Like the wrestlers were good. They did their job. I just didn't have a much thought about it. I didn't even think like, God, I'm so bored. It just happened.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I wanted to be into it because I'm like, it's the Rock and Roll Express. It's the Fabulous Freebirds. Yeah. It's a strap match. I should really be enjoying this. And I struggled to even care. And, you know, going back to the whole thing with the strap, one of the things when you watch a strap match, there's two things that really like make it seem violent with the crowd. One is that the sound
I was gonna say
of the strap hitting the skin is so loud it makes you go, oh my God. We all know that feeling. This weird little strap they used, it didn't even make like a dull thud.
No.
And so, but then even the hits that they were doing with it didn't seem like these wild hits, like they didn't care about the other one's well-being. It was like these soft, dinky little hits that then the Freebirds had to sell all cartoonishly. It just, I don't know. This was not a great strap match.
No, the only part that looked somewhat painful is where all of the little straps came together on the end. Maybe that little end piece would hurt, but yeah, it just kind of looked floppy. Like, those floppy hands that come in the little quarter machines, and they're sticky and you can stretch them. It's like hitting someone with that.
Yeah, it didn't, I don't know. It didn't accomplish much. But anyway, we go back to Tony Schiavone, who is with the world's strongest man, Doug Furnas, who we will actually see over the years here and there. He was legitimately a record-setting power lifter who had gotten into wrestling just a few years before this. And he says that Lex Luger is good to go for tonight's match. So thank you, Doug. Then in comes Sting to tell us that Lex Luger is good for tonight's match. So thank you, Sting. But he's wearing one of those 90s tank tops that you don't really see anymore, with kind of like the spaghetti straps that shows a whole lot of man cleavage. It hangs way down. And like along with those pink Zubaz, this is like peak 90s Sting.
Yeah. And right now on AEW's website, they're selling like 90s Sting t-shirts, and they're like pink and like bright blue.
Wow.
And I want to get one and like cut off the sleeves and make it into that style. It'd be cool.
That would be cool. Well, Sting also mentions that Lex wasn't 100%, but it's Lex's body, Lex's choice. Sting, so ahead of his time here. Way in front of this movement.
He is so not problematic. There's nothing problematic about that man.
Well, let's go to the ring for yet another title match.
Yes, at least this one's a title. It's all good. So it's a tag team match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. So we've got Doom with, again, Mr. Theodore R. Long versus the champions, the Steiner brothers. So, but there's no woman with Doom. She's moved on to Ric Flair. Oh, gosh. But hey, this is the third time we've seen this match on pay-per-view.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. And maybe it's because I knew the result of this match going in, but the Steiners, they kind of seem to have the boo-boo face when they're on their way down to the ring. Did you notice that?
What's a boo-boo face?
Like when somebody knows that they're going to lose the title, or they're not going to win the title, or they're going to lose a big match. Sometimes you can kind of tell on their way to the ring, there's just something off. Like they kind of seem like, oh, this sucks.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, hell, I'll get to it in a second, but I was shocked.
Yeah. Well, by the way, at this time on this pay-per-view, current WWE Intercontinental Champion Braun Breaker, son of Rick Steiner, was -7 years old.
Oh, Lord. And I was like -3 months old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I was excited to see Teddy Long with his new hairdo, but he just put on a do-rag to cover it up. And hey, is that where the term do-rag came from?
Sure.
It
makes sense.
Your do. You put a rag on your do. Well, Rick snatches that do-rag right off Teddy's head, and he's like pissed, and everyone's giggling and snickering at his baldness. But honestly, like, he looks exactly the same because, like you said, he's always been bald on top and the sides are just shorter now. And honestly, he looks better. Yeah,
that guy did him a huge favor.
Yeah, I don't know why everyone's giggling. And by the way, Teddy Long, like today, 2025, he looks so different now. Like I saw a photo of him on some upcoming wrestling con, and he looks like a professional man in like a suit. He looks like a Baptist preacher.
Yeah, which would be a great job for him, actually, now that I think about it.
Right.
But there are two men on this show who are wearing mismatched wrestling boots. Norman the Lunatic, Rick Steiner.
Maybe they just traded one boot and one shoe, and because that's what friends do, like in junior
It's like
high.
blood brothers, but like gross and stinky.
Shoe. Well, it's not any grosser than mixing your blood.
That's true.
Well, JR, he referred to Butch as Hacksaw Butch Reed. And I totally forgot that that was his full name. And I'm sorry, but like Hacksaw will just always be Jim Duggan to me.
Yeah, and I wonder if that was like some sort of intentional dig because like earlier JR called something a happening.
Right. I think I
And
mentioned
he
that
loves to make
later.
these little digs at the WWF during these pay-per-views, so who knows?
Uh-huh. Well, the Steiner brothers dominate the match. And honestly, like, I thought it was pretty obvious that Doom was going to lose this. So I was shocked. And even if they cheated and had Teddy distract the ref to do it, Doom,
Again.
yes.
Like the finish is a double team behind the distracted referee's back for the win. That's 3 times we've gotten the same finish on this show.
And we've only had like 4 matches. So
It's crazy.
Did they not realize? Did no one talk to each other before this?
I guess not. There's got to be some reason why that bothered me.
Yeah, well, hey, Doom did win the match and the championship in 19 minutes and 14 seconds. Did you feel like they should have won the championship?
Yeah, but I feel like maybe they should have won it before this. Honestly,
Mhm.
like maybe when they still had the masks on because they were brought in as like this unknown tag team who was dominant and powerful, and then they had an awful showing in the tournament that we watched from the end of 1989.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm glad they won, but I wonder if they should have done it before.
Yeah, I remember the last WCW show we did. I can't even remember what it was at this point, but remember how Butch and Ron came out in those suits and they were looking really sharp? I wish they
Yeah,
would have saved that look and that aura for after they became champions, you know?
yeah, that would have made more sense. Yeah,
Yeah, so either they needed to win earlier or save that till later, because they
yeah.
were also kind of like Teddy Long's like bodyguards and stuff. So I don't know, but Tony Schiavone, he interviews Doom right after, and Teddy Long says he may have lost some hair, but he gained the world. Like, how cute is that? How poetic is
Oh,
that?
I like that.
I
I'm going to
like
start
that.
using that actually myself.
Yes.
I might have lost some hair, but I gained the world.
Sorry, I had to cough. I muted you people, or I muted myself so you wouldn't have to hear that nasty. Um, so Butch Reed basically says that nobody believed in them and that they are championship material, but then he just yells, Doom rules. And I was really hoping he would continue with, and Steiner's drool. Like, such a great phrase that died in the 90s.
I know, right?
I'm going to start saying it again. I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to tell our niece so she can take it to school.
Like I drool in my sleep, or like, have you ever been like really focused on something, like trying to do something, you're like really focused, and then like a little bit of drool like just falls out of your mouth and you feel so gross and you even try to go like to suck it back up, even though it's already on your leg.
Are you taking the same cough syrup I'm taking? Because no, the only time I've caught myself drooling is when I've like nodded off on the couch and like I wake up and I'm like, oh God, it's on my hand and everything. Yuck. Oh, well. Ron Simmons, there you go. Ron Simmons, he says that it was a clean fight, and Teddy announces a celebration party and even invites Jim Herd to come.
I bet there would be pizza.
Why?
Remember, he was a Pizza Hut executive before he was in charge of WCW.
Oh, damn. I totally forgot about that. I was like, well, yeah, I like pizza at parties. I thought you were just making like a. That's funny. Well, take me to our main event, brother.
It is time for our main event of the evening, a steel cage match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Lex Luger, the challenger, the total package, versus our champion, Ric Flair, accompanied by Woman herself. Last saw these guys on Wrestle War 90, where they wrestled each other. In fact, this is the 5th time we have seen this match on pay-per-view. That's a lot.
That's wild. Your stat down there coming up is going to go way up with the rematch count.
Yeah, I know. Well, at Wrestle War, just as a reminder, if you missed that show, the Andersons interfered in the title match between these two, leading to Lex being given a rematch in a steel cage in order to keep any interference from happening. And then in the following weeks, the Horsemen added Barry Windham and Sid Vicious to the group, with Ole acting more as like a manager.
I like that. I appreciate that because Ole, I just don't buy him as this like tough, mean guy. Like he's just kind of, I don't know, kind of like Humperdinck, you know? No, I just can't explain it.
Don't tell
But
him that.
well, man, Lex is oily, like really, really oily, and that makes me think, like, does that not make it way harder to wrestler? Like, Flair isn't oily. Like, think about it, like grabbing him for like a suplex or something. Like, it's gonna be like, whoop, just slip right
Well,
out.
that's why I promoted that Crisco match earlier between Bam Bam and Earthquake. I mean, you just got it's. I think it would be
That
magical.
was Bam Bam and Norman. Justin Earthquake
yeah.
is in the WWF.
Yeah. Him too.
Man, Slippery Earthquake. That was the name of my first high school band.
There it
Ew.
is. There it is. Well, when Flair enters, they lower the steel cage as a bunch of sparklers go off. And I was like, oh, God, easy with the pyro around an NWA cage because Great Muta went back to Japan. He can't like crawl up there and mist and hasha-frasha that flame out.
Hell, I was thinking about that during this match. That was one of the like coolest flexes I've ever seen. Like, right? Like, I'm gonna go up there with my green mist in my mouth and just put out a whole fire. Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He didn't get enough credit for that. Well, woman was hiding something in her glove, and the ref comes to investigate it, even though Flair's like, no, don't do that. But he comes to investigate and he pulls out this little like object, this little white thing, kind of like the thing that was in Teddy Long's glove. But honestly, it kind of just looks like a tampon.
Yeah. I had that same note. I was like, well, why are you taking that woman's tampon? Like, it might be her time. You can't do that. That's wrong, man.
I like how you didn't even acknowledge how I said a tampon.
I don't know.
I stole that from We're the Millers, Kathy Hahn. She says it. But now Shannon, our sister, when we're at work, she'll text me from the bathroom and say, can you bring me a tampon? And it's spelled like that.
How do you even spell that?
It's like TIAMPIN, a tampon. I'm like, gosh, Shannon, be prepared.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh. Well, as you kind of mentioned before, I was a little disappointed there was no electricity involved with this cage because, like, with the fear of, not being zapped, it kind of, like, the cage kind of loses its flair.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell to that end that it is the same cage from that match because it surrounds the ring like the Hell in a Cell does. There's just no roof. It's just kind of like indented on the top. But yeah.
Well, Lex, he was taking those chops from Flair and his old habit came back. The doos, those definitely kind of came out.
Do you think this is the point where he thought, how many times do I have to wrestle Flair before I actually become champion?
I hope so, because if I didn't know better, I'd say Vince McMahon was booking this.
like just to bait Luger. Oh, God. Poor guy.
Well, JR calls Lex a power wrestler personified. And again, like that paired with the happening, like I was kind of confused because last week he was like making fun of Gorilla saying it's not a happening, it's an event. But now he's copying him? What?
Well, we'll know for sure if he mentions referee Joey Morella. Then we'll know he's really copying Gorilla.
Hey, did you see? Sorry, this isn't in the notes or anything. I saw that Gorilla Monsoon's widow passed away, I think yesterday or the day.
Oh no,
before.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, because I was thinking, oh, is that Joey Morella in the photo? So that's what reminded me. Yeah, super sad. Yeah. But there's a moment in which Lex and Flair are outside the ring, on the ground. And there's a production crew guy in a bright yellow t-shirt. And he's like he's like the cord manager, like he's rolling cable and stuff. But he notices he's on camera. So he ducks and squishes himself into the tiniest ball possible as if it would make him unseen. So he's just like hiding in a bowl while the guys are wrestling around him. It was funny.
It kind of reminds me of earlier this week on Raw when Carlito interfered in a match. But he did it so beautifully because he pulled somebody over the top rope, landed on his own butt, with his back up against the ring, pulled out an apple out of his pants and just started eating it like he was just chilling. It was great.
Carlito's underrated, I'm telling you. Well, Flair. He got busted wide open at some point.
Oh my God.
Blood is pouring. And then Lex is rubbing his head against the bar. And I'm like, quit that. But like, I thought that was determined to not be allowed anymore. Like the whole Dusty thing.
Who even knows anymore? I mean, Granted, it was Flair because, he can pretty much do what he wanted. But like, they certainly didn't try to hide it because Flair goes headfirst into the ring post, down to the floor, and then just starts furiously scratching that mosquito bite on his forehead and came up, and boy, did he hit some blood.
Oh, it gives me the willies, man. I don't like it. I feel sick right now thinking about it. But hey, this is a great showing for Lex because he simply cannot be taken down. Like everything Ric Flair tries, it doesn't phase Lex, and I love it.
Yeah, and you know who else loved this? The 4 guys in the crowd who have taken off their shirts to spell Lex across their chest. Well, that's 3 guys, Lex, but like the 4th guy, I guess, just like straggled along, and they were like, put an exclamation mark on his chest. And
hey, the exclamation mark is great. You can add as many friends as you want.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Well, the 4 horsemen show up and they start climbing the cage because I guess that's more acceptable than just walking through the door. But I really love Arn Anderson's Easter Sunday church outfit. It's like nicely pressed khakis and a starched pale yellow button up.
I'm telling you, he looked like he was ready to sing some hymns, and it contrasts Ole's suspenders with a golf shirt Sunday bartender get up.
Totally. I mean, Arn, he looks like he has a monkey named Curious George. He just needed the hat. Well, Sting comes out to help Lex, and when the 4 horsemen turn on Sting, this new guy shows up. Were they pronouncing it El Gigante?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So, not gonna lie. Thought it was Ricky Steamboat for a moment because they only showed him from like the waist up and from behind. Didn't know who this was going to be. But they say he's 7'7" and 450 pounds. Dang.
That is a lot of man. That's a lot of man. He's a big old guy. Well, El Gigante chases the horseman away, but then the cage suddenly raises a few feet up off the ground. And then Barry Windham slides into the cage and attacks Luger while JR is screaming some bullshit about Ole Anderson is somehow controlling the cage. Like, what? But finally, Sting slides in, but it's too late. Lex Luger wins the match via disqualification, but Ric Flair retains the championship in 17 minutes and 21 seconds. How did you feel about this match?
How do you have a DQ in a cage match?
I agree.
That's how I felt.
I agree. Yes. Aside from that, what did you think of the main chunk of the match?
I like it, but I'm just getting frustrated, man. I'm getting like blue balls because I'm like, Lex is going to win, but he's not. Lex is going to win. This is the time. No. And like, I'm getting frustrated for Lex. Like, as a character and as a pro wrestler. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Ultimate Warrior finally got his time. So, like, I feel like it should be Lex's time.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'll be honest, when this match started, I remember thinking like, okay, we just saw these two have a banger of a match at the last pay-per-view. And I like both these guys and I like their chemistry, but what else are they going to do during this match that I'm going to care about? I really enjoyed this match. Like somehow their chemistry I watched them and I go, this is great. So while the ending kind of sucked and was pretty dumb and overproduced, the main chunk of the match, I really enjoyed.
I thought it was really good. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's, again, because I have the flu this week. Rick's blading was really getting to me. Like, I was really having to like it was just making me sick because I don't know. There's something about the amount of blood. I don't know, but I did like it because I don't know if I'm just reading into this too much, but I feel like Ric Flair's starting to like go crazy. Like, he's getting more and more like harder to understand, and he just looks like a madman all the time now. And I'm like, ooh, is like Lex getting in his head? But maybe I'm looking into that. But I did enjoy the match, but it's kind of like you said, the last one was just so good. I was kind of like, well, why don't you like end ahead? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to redo it, but it's on like not as good of a show. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, speaking of Ric Flair starting to go a little bit crazy, Tony catches up with Flair and the Horsemen walking up the aisle, and Flair is a madman. Like, he screams a lot, and he's using his bloody hand to grab Tony's tuxedo, which poor Tony and the dry cleaner. But he looked crazed, and it was very, very odd. Like, I don't really know why. But after that, JR bids us a good night. We're done with this one. So final thoughts on this show?
Pretty much the whole show, it just happened. Again, it wasn't like it was a super boring show. I didn't feel worn out, kind of like with WrestleMania 6 with like 14 matches. I didn't have a lot to say. There wasn't a lot that happened out of the ordinary for me to comment on. But as for the last match, I mean, maybe it's storyline. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but maybe Flair is starting to go nuts because he realized how close he was to losing that. Because, like I said, Lex was not, I mean, he couldn't knock Lex down. Like anytime he did something to Lex came back stronger. And so maybe he is kind of starting to be like, oh crap, this guy's gonna beat me one day. I got out of this one by the skin of my teeth. So I like this story going on with all of them. But as for the other matches, it was just happened. Like it just happened. What are your final thoughts?
I agree. And honestly, I was watching this pay-per-view. I've started doing your trick of splitting it up between 2 days. Just A, because it's easier, and B, I got 1,000 other things to do and I can't sit here for 3 hours.
Right.
I found myself watching it going, is something wrong with me?
I did too.
Am I tired? Am I in a bad mood? Am I stressed? Like, because there's a strap match and I should care, and I don't. There's a match with Cornette in a cage and I should care, and I don't. And it wasn't until the Luger Flair match where I kind of started getting into it a little bit more. And then there was that ending. You're right. I think you said it best. It's a pay-per-view that happened.
Yeah. And it's so weird you bring that up because I remember, like, I wouldn't have consciously thought about it to say it on the pay-per-view, but I was thinking, is it because I'm sick? Is it like, why do I not care what's wrong with me? Like, yeah. So that's interesting that you brought that up. But let's talk about what happened after the pay-per-view. So
let's do it.
This pay-per-view spelled the end for 3 tag teams in WCW, okay? The Samoan SWAT team, SST, as we'll mention in a minute. The Rock and Roll Express, as Robert Gibson injured his ACL in a house show match, leaving Ricky Morton to pursue a solo career. And the Road Warriors, who had been frustrated with their booking for a while, decided to leave the company shortly after this pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Well, they can't go to WWF because we already got Demolition over there.
That could never happen.
Never. But otherwise, the following weeks would see the buildup of the big Sting versus Ric Flair title match at Great American Bash. And honestly, if Sting wins that, I think Lex would be pissed.
He should be. He's faced Flair 5 times now. Like, how many times do you have to do this?
He's just gonna sit backstage going, do. Well, Justin, before we go, you got to hit me with some final
wrestle stats.
Wrestle stats. Oh yeah. So this is the final pay-per-view appearance in a match of one guy. That is the Samoan Savage of the SST, or the Samoan Savage leaves us with a record of 6 wins, 2 losses, and 0 draws. So adios to the Samoan Savage. We hardly knew ye. Well, a little bit, but you don't talk much, so it's hard. Not much on the matches, wins, losses front. All those stayed about the same for the tops of those lists. Let's get into the rematches. Like you mentioned earlier, this was the 5th time that we've seen Lex Luger versus Ric Flair. It was also the 2nd time, I believe, or the 3rd for Doom versus the Steiner brothers. So that means that 18 out of the 263 matches we've watched so far have been rematches. So that's up from last week to 6.84%. And title matches, now out of those 263 matches, 84 of those have been title matches for 31.94%. That's also up from last week. If you like those stats, check out WrestleStats.com. You can check out WrestleStats also on Twitter, on Threads, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on TikTok, all over the place. What about you, Michelle?
Yo, you can reach out to us at WrestleRecap on all the platforms. You can talk to us about the show, or if you just want to talk to me, you can reach out to me at Michelle Tater on X. Honestly, I don't really pay attention to the other apps for my own personal account, but I can tell you one thing, I'm not going to be tweeting about the Backstreet Boys. No, I'm done talking about them, but
no, hey, that's how you get hacked.
Oh, apparently. Well, What do we got next week? Ooh.
Well, next week, we're staying with WCW. We're not flip-flopping this time. We're going to WCW, like we just mentioned, Great American Bash 1990. Get this, 11 matches, 4 title matches, the debut of a future WWE Hall of Famer, and no RoboCop.
But Justin, what about the Slam-O meter?
God, I hope not.